My name is Jade, and I'm 32 years old. Standing at LAX arrivals with my suitcase, watching families reunite all around me, I never imagined my own mother would simply forget I existed. I had just returned from a business trip in Seattle, exhausted but excited to see my family. That's when I checked my phone and saw 12 missed calls from unknown numbers, but none from Mom. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you're watching from. If you've ever felt invisible to someone who should see you most, please subscribe and like this video. Because what I discovered that day changed everything about how I see myself and my worth. Growing up as the oldest of three children, I learned early that my role in the family was to be the responsible one, the one who never needed attention, never caused problems, never required special consideration. While my younger brother Tyler excelled at sports and commanded center stage with his athletic achievements, and my baby sister Emma captivated everyone with her artistic free spirit and creative talents. I quietly maintained straight A's, helped with household chores, and made sure everyone else had what they needed. My mother would often introduce us to people with such obvious pride differences. Tyler was her champion, the star quarterback who would surely get a full ride to college. Emma was her little artist destined for greatness with her paintings and poetry. And I was Jade, the responsible one. No adjectives of achievement, no sparkle in her eyes when she said my name. Just Jade who could be counted on to take care of herself. The dynamic had been set since childhood. I remember being 7 years old, sitting in the audience of my first piano recital, scanning the crowd for my mother's face. She had promised to be there, had helped me pick out my dress the night before. But when my name was called and I walked onto that stage, the seat she should have occupied was empty. Tyler had gotten into a fight at school that day, and dealing with that crisis took precedence over my moment. Dad recorded it on his old camcorder, and when I watched it back years later, you could hear his voice behind the camera saying softly, "She should be here, sweetheart." By the time I reached high school, the pattern was so established that I stopped expecting anything different. When I won the state science fair, Mom was at Tyler's away game 3 states over. When I gave my valedictorian speech at graduation, she sat in the back row because she had to leave early to drive Emma to her art class. I had earned a full scholarship to UCLA, but the celebration dinner we had planned turned into takeout, eaten quietly with Dad, while Mom shuttled Tyler to an emergency practice session. 5 years into my career at a tech company in Los Angeles, I had built a life that looked successful from the outside. I had my own apartment in Manhattan Beach, a growing savings account, and a reputation at work for being someone who could handle any project thrown my way. But I was still that 7-year-old girl scanning crowds for a mother who never quite saw me. I was the one who organized every family gathering, who remembered every birthday, who made sure the holidays happened smoothly. I poured myself into being indispensable, thinking that maybe if I did enough, if I was good enough, I would finally be seen. The Seattle trip had been a turning point in my career. I was presenting to potential investors about our new software platform, something I had been developing for 2 years. The presentation went better than I could have imagined, and my boss had pulled me aside afterward to hint that a promotion to senior director was coming. It would make me the youngest person to ever hold that position in the company's history. I was flying high on that plane ride home, eager to share the news with my family. For the first time in years, I had asked my mother for help. My car was in the shop, and rather than deal with the expensive airport parking or ask a friend to make the drive, I had called her a week before the trip. "Could you pick me up from LAX when I get back?" I had asked, trying to keep my voice casual, like this wasn't a test of whether she would show up for me. "Of course, sweetheart," she had responded immediately, her voice warm and enthusiastic. "I'll be there. Just text me your flight information and I'll put it in my calendar right now." I could hear her writing it down, the scratch of her pen against paper. "It's been too long since we've had time, just the two of us. We can grab lunch after I pick you up." I had sent her 3 separate reminders. The flight information when I booked it, a reminder the day before I left for Seattle, and then a text when I was boarding my return flight that morning. Each time she had responded with confirmation. "Can't wait to see you. Drive safe to the airport. See you soon, honey." The plane touched down at 11:15 in the morning, exactly on time. I texted her as soon as we were allowed to use our phones. "Just landed, heading to baggage claim now." Should be at pickup area in about 15 minutes. I retrieved my suitcase quickly, a small carry-on that I had gotten good at packing efficiently after years of business travel. The arrivals area was buzzing with energy, full of drivers holding signs, families embracing children running toward grandparents with arms outstretched. I positioned myself at our usual meeting spot, the third pillar from the sliding doors where she had picked me up years ago, when I flew home from college for breaks. 15 minutes passed, then 20. I sent another text. I'm here at our usual spot. No response. I called her phone. It rang once and went to voicemail, which meant she had declined the call. Maybe she was driving, I thought. Los Angeles traffic was notoriously unpredictable. 30 minutes turned into 45. Other passengers from my flight had long since departed. The security guard who had been eyeing me with mild concern finally approached. "You waiting for someone, miss?" he asked kindly. "My mother," I replied, forcing a smile. "You know how LA traffic can be." He nodded sympathetically and moved on, but I could feel his occasional glances as I continued to stand there checking my phone obsessively. That's when I noticed the missed calls. 12 of them all, from numbers I didn't recognize, all from the last 2 hours while I had been on the plane. My stomach dropped as I began to listen to the voicemails. The first voicemail made my blood run cold. "Hi, Jade, this is Mrs. Henderson from next door. I saw an ambulance at your parents' house this morning and I'm worried. Please call me when you get this." My hands shook as I immediately called my father's cell phone, praying he would answer. The relief when I heard his voice was overwhelming but short-lived. "Dad, thank God. Is Mom okay? Is everyone okay? I saw an ambulance was at the house." "What snow? Everyone's fine, kiddo. There was no ambulance. Maybe Mrs. Henderson saw the neighbor's place." "Where are you calling from?" "I'm at LAX, at the airport. Mom was supposed to pick me up over an hour ago." "Is she okay?" "Where is she?" The pause that followed felt endless. I could hear background noise cheering and announcements over a loudspeaker. "Oh," he finally said, his voice uncomfortable. "She's here at Tyler's tournament with Emma and me. He made varsity captain, and they're doing a special ceremony." The words hit me like physical blows. She forgot me. She forgot she was supposed to pick me up and went to Tyler's game instead. "Dad, she was supposed to pick me up. We confirmed it this morning. I texted her when I landed. I've been standing here for over an hour." Another pause. I could hear him moving away from the noise, probably stepping outside. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. You know how she gets with Tyler's games. She must have gotten the days mixed up." But I wanted to scream that she had written it down, that we had confirmed multiple times that I had flown home specifically today because she said she would be there. Instead, I just stood there in the airport, watching a mother embrace her daughter a few feet away, watching a father lift his young son onto his shoulders, watching all the reunions I would never have. "I'll just get an Uber," I said quietly. "I can come get you," Dad offered, but we both knew he wouldn't leave Tyler's game. "It's fine. I'll see you later." I hung up and opened the rideshare app, watching the fare estimate climb to $68 for the ride to my parents' house in Pasadena. As I confirmed the ride, I noticed more voicemails waiting. The second one was from my high school best friend. "Hey, Jade. Weird question, but didn't you say your mom was picking you up from the airport today? I just saw her at Target buying party decorations, and she said something about Tyler's big day. Just wanted to make sure you got home okay." The third through seventh messages were variations of the same theme. People who had seen my mother around town preparing for some kind of celebration, while I stood abandoned at the airport. Each message was another confirmation that this wasn't a mistake or mix-up. She had simply chosen Tyler's moment over her commitment to me. My Uber driver was a kind older gentleman named Robert, who tried to make conversation as we navigated the familiar streets toward my childhood home. "Family running late?" he asked, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. "Something like that," I replied, staring out the window as we passed the exit for the airport that my mother had driven past without a second thought. The ride gave me too much time to think, too much time to catalog all the moments that had led to this one. The 8th grade science fair where I had won first place and she had forgotten to come to the ceremony because Tyler had practice. My 16th birthday when she had promised a special mother-daughter dinner but canceled last minute because Emma had a bad day at school. my college graduation where she arrived 45 minutes late, and missed my valedictorian speech because Tyler's car had broken down and he needed a ride. Each memory was like picking at an old wound that had never properly healed. I had spent so many years making excuses for her, telling myself that she was busy, that she was doing her best, that I was being too sensitive. But sitting in the back of that Uber, watching the fare climb higher with each mile, I couldn't excuse it anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Where are you? Mom's been acting weird all morning, running around like crazy." Another text followed immediately. "Oh my God, she's throwing a surprise party for Tyler, for making varsity captain. The whole team is coming over." I stared at the messages, feeling something inside me finally break. While I had been standing alone at the airport, my mother had been decorating the house for Tyler. While I had been listening to voicemails from concerned neighbors, she had been baking his favorite cake. While I had been spending $70 on an Uber, she had been celebrating another one of his achievements that would be memorialized and discussed for years, while my promotion would go unmentioned. We pulled up to my childhood home, and I could see the balloons tied to the mailbox, the cars lining the street, the shadows of people moving behind the windows. Robert looked at the obvious party preparations and then back at me with my suitcase. "You sure this is the right address?" he asked gently. "Unfortunately, yes," I replied, handing him a cash tip. "Thank you for the ride." I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, suitcase in hand, staring at the house where I had grown up, feeling invisible. Through the window, I could see my mother laughing, her face bright with the kind of joy she reserved for Tyler's accomplishments. I could see Tyler surrounded by teammates, Emma taking photos, Dad manning the grill in the backyard. My phone buzzed with an email from work. The subject line read, "Congratulations, Director Jade. The promotion had been approved." I was officially the youngest senior director in company history. The irony of standing outside my childhood home with this news, watching my family celebrate Tyler's varsity captainship while having forgotten my existence entirely, was not lost on me. I walked through the front door into a wall of noise and activity. The living room was full of Tyler's teammates and their parents, red and gold streamers and school colors hanging from every surface, a massive banner reading, "Congratulations, Captain Tyler," stretched across the wall. The dining room table was covered with food, and through the kitchen doorway I could see an elaborate custom cake with Tyler's jersey number crafted in fondant. It took a full 30 seconds before anyone noticed me standing there with my suitcase. It was Emma who saw me first, her eyes widening as she realized what had happened. She started moving toward me, but before she could reach me, my mother emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray of appetizers. "Oh, Jade," she said, as casually as if I had just walked in from the next room, instead of having been abandoned at the airport. "When did you get here? Did you come straight from work?" The room had gone quiet, everyone sensing the tension, even if they didn't understand its source. I stood there in my wrinkled business clothes, my suitcase still in my hand, staring at the woman who had given birth to me but never really seen me. "You were supposed to pick me up from the airport," I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. She blinked, confused for a moment, before her face shifted into an expression of mild annoyance. "Oh, honey, I thought you said next weekend. You know how confused I get with all these schedules. You should have just taken an Uber from the start." "We confirmed it this morning," I replied. "I texted you when I landed. I called you 15 times. "Well, I've been busy with Tyler's party," she said, gesturing around the room as if that explained everything. "You know how important this is. He made varsity captain as a junior. Do you know how rare that is?" Tyler, to his credit, looked deeply uncomfortable. "Mom, if you were supposed to pick up Jade—" "It's fine," she cut him off, her tone suggesting we were making too big a deal of everything. "She's here now. Jade, honey, can you help me get the rest of the food from the kitchen? People are hungry." I stood there for another moment, looking around the room at the elaborate decorations, the custom cake, the photographer she had apparently hired to capture Tyler's special day. I thought about all my special days that had passed, undocumented, uncelebrated, unnoticed. Emma appeared at my elbow, gently taking my suitcase. "Come upstairs for a minute," she whispered. "You can change and—" "I need a moment," I said, louder than necessary. The room was still quiet, everyone watching this family drama unfold. "Actually, I need more than a moment." My mother's face flushed with embarrassment and anger. Jade, this is not the time or place. This is Tyler's day. Something in me snapped at those words. Tyler's day. Everything was Tyler's day or Emma's day, but never. Not once in 32 years had anything been Jade's day. You're right, I said. This is Tyler's day. Just like last Tuesday was Tyler's day when you drove 2 hours to watch his practice scrimmage. Just like last month was Tyler's day when you missed my work presentation to attend his team dinner. Just like my college graduation was Tyler's day when you left early to pick him up from a friend's house. Jade, my mother started, but I wasn't done. Do you know what I found out on the plane this morning? I got promoted. Senior director, the youngest in the company's history. But you wouldn't know that because you've never once asked about my job beyond whether it pays well enough. The silence in the room was deafening. Tyler's teammates were shifting uncomfortably, some of them pulling out phones to pretend they weren't listening. Parents were exchanging glances. Dad had come in from the backyard still holding spatula, his face grave. I think what hurts the most, I continued, my voice breaking slightly, is that you didn't just forget to pick me up. You remembered enough to decline my call when I was trying to reach you. You were already here setting up for this party, and you saw my name on your phone and decided not to answer. That's not... I didn't... My mother was flustered now, trying to find a defense. Mom literally drove past the airport exit, Tyler said quietly. I was in the car with her. She had her GPS set to come here, and I asked if we were picking up Jade first, and she said Jade wasn't coming until next week. I pulled out my phone and showed the room my text conversation with her. The confirmations, the flight information sent 3 times her responses, saying she couldn't wait to see me. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, who had been watching from the corner, finally spoke up. Helen, she said softly to my mother, you've always done this. You've always overlooked Jade. We've all seen it. That's not true, my mother protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Name one of my achievements from the last year I challenged her. Just one thing you can remember celebrating with me or for me. The silence stretched out, painful and revealing. She couldn't name a single thing. Not my promotion to senior manager 6 months ago. Not the award I had won at work. Not the marathon I had trained for and completed. Not the volunteer program I had started. Nothing. Meanwhile, I could list every one of Tyler's games, every one of Emma's art shows, every minor achievement that had been celebrated with cake and parties and social media posts. You want to know what those 12 missed calls were about? I said, pulling up my voicemail. The first one was, Mrs. Henderson worried because she thought something terrible had happened when she saw you racing out of the driveway this morning. The second was my friend Sarah, who saw you at the store and wondered why you were buying party supplies when you were supposed to be at the airport. The third through seventh were all people who knew about the airport pickup and were concerned. The eighth was the airport security wondering if I needed assistance because I had been standing there so long. I paused, looking at my mother's face, which had gone from defensive to something approaching awareness. The ninth call was from my therapist's office, confirming my appointment for next week, where I was planning to talk about why I keep seeking approval from people who don't see me. The 10th was from my best friend checking in because she knows how hard it is for me to ask you for anything. The 11th was from a colleague congratulating me on the promotion you know nothing about. And the 12th was from the Uber driver who had taken me to the airport this morning, checking that I had made my flight, because I had seemed anxious about coming home. Each word felt like shedding a weight I had carried for too long. The room was absolutely still, even the younger kids sensing this was something significant. I'm done, I finally said. I'm done being invisible in this family. I'm done being the responsible one, who never needs anything. I'm done watching you pour everything into Tyler and Emma while treating me like an afterthought. My father stepped forward. She's right, he said quietly, and everyone turned to look at him. We've failed her. I've failed her by letting this go on for so long. My mother's face crumbled. After everything I've done for this family. For Tyler and Emma, I corrected. You've done everything for Tyler and Emma. But when was the last time you did something just for me? When was the last time you chose me? She opened her mouth and closed it. The answer was clear to everyone in the room. She couldn't remember because it hadn't happened in recent memory, possibly ever. I turned to Tyler, who looked stricken. This isn't your fault, I told him. Enjoy your party. You earned it. captain is a big deal. Then I looked at Emma, tears streaming down her face. I love you both. This isn't about you. This is about me finally choosing myself the way no one else in this family ever has. I picked up my suitcase from where Emma had set it down and walked toward the door. My mother called after me, her voice shifting from anger to panic. "Where are you going?" "Jade, don't be dramatic. Come back here." I paused at the door, hand on the knob. "I'm going to a hotel. I'm going to celebrate my promotion with people who actually see me. And then I'm going to build a life where I'm not waiting for you to notice me anymore." "You can't just leave," she said, as if she had any authority to make me stay. "Watch me," I replied. "You've been leaving me behind my whole life. The only difference is I'm being honest about it." Tyler suddenly spoke up. "I'll drive you, Jade, to the hotel." Several of his teammates nodded in agreement, and I realized that witnessing this had affected them too. They had seen the truth laid bare, the ugly favoritism that had shaped our family dynamic. "Thanks, but I already have a ride coming," I said, having ordered another Uber while speaking. "I need some time alone anyway." Dad walked over and hugged me, whispering in my ear, "I'm proud of you." "The promotion? And for this? We need to really talk when you're ready." Emma ran over and threw her arms around me. "Please don't disappear," she begged. "I'm not disappearing," I assured her. "I'm just stopping being invisible." "There's a difference." My phone buzzed with the arrival of my Uber. As I walked out, I heard Aunt Patricia say to my mother, Helen, "You need to take a long, hard look at yourself. You just lost your daughter because you couldn't see her. Don't let your pride make this permanent." I climbed into the car, gave the driver the name of a nice hotel by the beach, and didn't look back at the house. My phone immediately started buzzing with calls from my mother, but I declined each one. For the first time in my life, I was choosing my peace over her reaction. The hotel was beautiful, with an ocean view and a spa. I checked in, went to my room, and sat on the balcony watching the waves. The 12 missed calls from that morning had turned into 43 from my mother, but I wasn't ready to listen to them. Instead, I called my colleagues who had been waiting to celebrate the promotion with me. They were shocked to hear what had happened, but immediately rallied, insisting on taking me out for a proper celebration dinner. That evening, sitting in a restaurant with people who genuinely celebrated my success, who asked about my projects and listened to my ideas, who saw me for who I was rather than who they needed me to be, I felt something I hadn't experienced before. I felt visible. I felt valued. I felt free. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the hotel window and the sound of waves crashing against the shore. For a moment, I forgot where I was, and then the events of yesterday came flooding back. But instead of the pain I expected to feel, there was a strange sense of lightness, as if I had finally set down a burden I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. I ordered room service, something I never did because it felt too indulgent, and ate breakfast on the balcony while reading through the messages that had accumulated overnight. Tyler had sent a long text apologizing for benefiting from the favoritism and promising to do better. Emma had sent 17 messages ranging from anger at mom, to support for me, to funny memes trying to make me smile. Dad had written a thoughtful email acknowledging his complicity in the dynamic and asking if we could have lunch, just the two of us. And then there were my mother's voicemails. I finally felt ready to listen to them. They were a journey through the stages of her processing what had happened. The first few were angry and defensive, accusing me of ruining Tyler's day and embarrassing the family. Then came the attempts at gaslighting, suggesting I had misremembered our conversations about the airport. Then bargaining, offering to throw me a party for my promotion if I would just come home and apologize. But the last voicemail, left at 3 in the morning, was different. Her voice was quiet, raw, and for the first time honest. "Jade, it's Mom. I've been up all night thinking about what you said. Tyler showed me the texts, all of them with the times and dates. I did forget you. Not just yesterday, but so many times before. I don't have an excuse. I could say it's because you were always so capable, so independent, that I thought you didn't need me the way the others did. But that's not fair to you. You were a child who needed her mother, and I failed you. I'm starting therapy next week. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, or maybe ever. But I need you to know that I heard you yesterday. Really heard you. For the first time." I sat with that message for a long time, replaying it, parsing each word. It was progress, but it was also decades late. I thought about all the little girl versions of me who had needed to hear those words, who had waited for that recognition, who had finally stopped waiting. I decided to stay at the hotel for a week, using my accumulated vacation days to create space for myself. Each day brought new revelations. My mother sent daily texts, not demanding responses, but sharing her therapy insights and childhood memories, where she recognized the pattern starting. She had been the overlooked middle child in her own family, always outshone by her athletic older brother and artistic younger sister. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Tyler started sending me his game schedules with notes like, "You don't have to come, but you're invited if you want. No pressure." He also started sharing his own struggles with the pressure of being the golden child, the weight of carrying all of mom's dreams. We had never talked like this before, and I realized the favoritism had isolated him too, just in a different way. Emma visited me at the hotel on day 3, bringing my favorite coffee and sitting with me on the beach for hours. She told me about all the times she had tried to point out the disparity to Mom, how it had caused fights between them. She said she had started documenting it in her journal, pages and pages of moments when I had been overlooked, thinking maybe someday she could show Mom the pattern. She had been 13 years old and seeing what the adults refused to acknowledge. Dad came on day 5, and we had the longest conversation we'd ever had. He told me about his own childhood with an emotionally absent father and how he had sworn to be different, but had ended up repeating the pattern by being passive when he should have been protective. He said watching me stand up for myself in that room full of people was one of the bravest things he'd ever seen, and it had forced him to confront his own cowardice. By the end of the week, I had made several decisions. I would maintain a relationship with my family, but on my terms. Monthly dinners, not weekly. Holidays would be shared, not commanded. I would stop being the default organizer of family events. Most importantly, I would stop dimming my own light to make others more comfortable with their brightness. I also started therapy specifically focusing on untangling my self-worth from external validation. My therapist helped me see how I had recreated the family dynamic in other areas of my life, accepting crumbs of recognition at work, when I deserved feasts, dating people who treated me as an option rather than a priority, maintaining friendships where I gave everything and received little in return. 3 months later, I was thriving in my new position at work, had joined a hiking group where I was making genuine friendships, and had started dating someone who celebrated my achievements as enthusiastically as I celebrated theirs. The monthly family dinners were stilted at first, with Mom trying too hard, and everyone walking on eggshells. But gradually we found a new rhythm. The real test came 6 months later at Emma's college graduation. Mom had promised to be there early to save seats to be present for the whole ceremony. That morning, Tyler had a minor car accident, nothing serious, but enough to need her help. I watched her struggle with the decision, saw her instinct to drop everything for Tyler, and then saw her make a different choice. "I'll call you an Uber to the hospital," she told Tyler. "Dad can meet you there." I promised Emma I would be at her graduation. It was a small moment, but it was everything. Tyler was fine. Dad handled it, and Mom stayed for Emma's entire ceremony. She was also there front row when I gave a presentation at a tech conference the following month. She didn't understand most of what I was saying, but she was there, and she was trying. The abandoned airport pickup became a turning point story in our family, the moment when everything changed. Not fixed, not erased, but changed. Mom kept a photo from my promotion celebration on her desk, next to Tyler's team photos and Emma's artwork. She started asking about my work, Googling terms she didn't understand, sending me articles about women in tech with notes like, "This reminded me of you." But the biggest change was in me. I stopped waiting for permission to be seen. I stopped shrinking to fit into spaces too small for my spirit. I stopped apologizing for my success or minimizing my achievements. I learned that choosing yourself isn't selfish. Sometimes it's the most generous thing you can do, because it frees others from the burden of your unexpressed resentment. Looking back now, that day at the airport was both an ending and a beginning. It was the end of accepting invisibility as my role in the family, the end of believing that love meant self-erasure, the end of waiting for someone else to validate my worth. but it was also the beginning of a more honest relationship with my family, the beginning of boundaries that protected my peace, the beginning of understanding that being chosen by yourself is more powerful than being chosen by anyone else. My mother and I will never have the relationship I once dreamed of, the effortless closeness I see some daughters share with their mothers. Too much time has passed, too many moments were missed, too many wounds need healing. But we have something real now, built on truth, rather than pretense, acknowledgement rather than denial. Tyler and I have become closer than we ever were growing up. Without the weight of being pitted against each other for our mother's attention, we discovered we actually like each other. He asks my advice about career decisions, and I attend some of his games by choice rather than obligation. He's become an advocate for equity in his own relationships, calling out favoritism when he sees it, having learned firsthand how it damages everyone involved. Emma credits that day with giving her the courage to set her own boundaries with Mom about her art career. She says watching me refuse to be invisible anymore showed her that she didn't have to be the perpetual baby of the family, always needing rescue, always fragile. She's thriving in her own right now, and our relationship has evolved from protective older sister and helpless younger sister to genuine friends. Dad has perhaps changed the most. He's become actively present rather than passively available. He initiates one-on-one time with each of us, refuses to be the go-between for Mom's messages, and has started therapy himself to address his own family patterns. He told me recently that my stand that day woke him up to how much life he had been sleeping through. The ripple effects extended beyond our immediate family. Aunt Patricia told me that witnessing that confrontation made her examine favoritism in her own family. Several of Tyler's teammates reached out afterward to share their own stories of family invisibility. Even Mrs. Henderson, our neighbor who had made that first worried phone call, told me she was proud of me for finally speaking my truth. At work, the confidence I found in choosing myself translated into better leadership, clearer communication, and stronger boundaries. I stopped overworking to prove my worth and started working strategically instead. The promotion I had earned became the first of several, as I rose through the ranks, no longer held back by imposter syndrome rooted in childhood invisibility. In relationships, I learned to recognize the red flags I had previously ignored. The subtle dismissals, the consistent prioritization of everything else over our plans, the inability to celebrate my successes without making it about themselves. These were all echoes of my family dynamic that I had unconsciously accepted as normal. Now I knew better, and I chose better. The 12 missed calls that started this journey became a symbol for me of all the times I had been overlooked, forgotten, dismissed. But they also became a reminder that other people were watching, caring, checking in. Those calls from neighbors and friends showed me that I was visible to people who chose to see me, even when my own mother couldn't. I keep a screenshot of those missed calls on my phone, not as a weapon or a wound, but as a reminder that I survived being forgotten, a reminder that I found my voice in an airport arrival area, surrounded by strangers and reunions that weren't mine. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful moment of your life comes not from being chosen, but from choosing yourself when no one else will. The hotel by the beach where I spent that first week has become an annual retreat for me. Every year on the anniversary of the airport abandonment, I book the same room and spend a weekend reflecting on how far I've come. I journal about the ways I've chosen myself that year, the boundaries I've maintained, the growth I've achieved. It's a celebration of my own becoming independent of anyone else's recognition. Last year, Mom asked if she could join me for part of the weekend. It was a bold request given the history, but I appreciated that she asked rather than assumed. We had dinner together on the Saturday night overlooking the ocean, and she told me something that shifted my perspective slightly. "I was so afraid of you," she said, stirring her coffee slowly. "You were this perfect, capable child who seemed to need nothing from me. Tyler was struggling in school, needed help with everything. Emma was so sensitive, cried if I looked at her wrong. But you just handled everything. I think I convinced myself you didn't need me because the truth that you did need me, but I was failing you, was too painful to face. It wasn't an excuse, and she wasn't asking for absolution, but it was an explanation that helped me understand. The favoritism hadn't been malicious. It had been fearful. She had been a scared mother who took the path of least resistance, pouring herself into the children who demanded attention, while ignoring the one who quietly deserved it. "Do you regret having me?" I asked her that night, a question I had carried since childhood, but never voiced. Her response was immediate and fierce. "Never. My regret is that I didn't know how to love you the way you needed to be loved. My regret is that I let my own insecurities and limitations harm you. My regret is that it took you walking away for me to see you clearly." We cried together that night, mourning the relationship we might have had, grieving the moments we couldn't get back. But we also talked about the future, about the relationship we were building now, imperfect, but honest, scarred, but healing. The truth is that some wounds don't fully heal. They leave scars that ache when the weather changes, phantom pains, when certain memories surface. The little girl who waited at countless recitals and games for a mother who never came still lives inside me, and sometimes she hurts. But she's not waiting anymore. She knows her worth isn't determined by who shows up for her, but by how she shows up for herself. That day at the airport, abandoned and forgotten, surrounded by 12 missed calls from everyone except the person who mattered most, I made a choice that changed everything. I chose myself, not in anger or spite, but in love and necessity. I chose to stop being invisible, to stop accepting crumbs, to stop dimming my light to avoid outshining others. And in that choosing, I discovered something powerful. When you choose yourself, really choose yourself, you give others permission to see you clearly, perhaps for the first time. Some will rise to meet you in that clarity. Others will fall away, unable to handle the truth of who you are when you're not shrinking. Both responses are gifts revealing who deserves space in your life and who is only comfortable with your diminished version. My story isn't unique. There are countless invisible daughters and sons, overlooked siblings, forgotten children, who grow into adults still seeking the validation they never received. To them, I want to say this: you are not invisible. You are not too much or not enough. You are not responsible for making yourself small enough to be loved. You deserve to be seen, celebrated, chosen, but most importantly, you deserve to choose yourself. The 12 missed calls taught me that being forgotten by someone who should remember you is painful, but forgetting yourself while waiting for them to remember is tragic. So remember yourself. Choose yourself. Show up for yourself with the dedication you've shown up for everyone else. Build a life where your absence is felt, your presence is valued, and your worth is unquestioned, especially by you. That's what I did. Standing in that airport, abandoned but not broken, forgotten but not erased, I chose myself for the first time. And every day since I've chosen myself again and again, building a life where I'm the protagonist of my own story, not a supporting character in someone else's. It's the best choice I've ever made. The funny thing about choosing yourself is that it's not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice, 1,000 small choices that add up to a transformed life. It's speaking up in meetings when you used to stay silent. It's celebrating your own achievements instead of waiting for others to notice. It's leaving relationships that require you to be less than you are. It's saying no to obligations that drain you, and yes to opportunities that inspire you. It's remembering that you are worthy of the love you so freely give to others. That day at LAX, watching families reunite while standing alone with my suitcase, I thought I was experiencing the worst abandonment of my life. But I was actually experiencing my first moment of true freedom. Freedom from seeking approval that would never come. Freedom from shrinking to fit into spaces too small for my spirit. Freedom from the exhausting performance of being okay with being overlooked. Now, when I travel, I take myself to the airport and pick myself up when I return. It's become a ritual of self-sufficiency, a reminder that I am my own first responder, my own safety net, my own celebration committee. And somehow, paradoxically, by needing less from others, I receive more. By expecting nothing, I appreciate everything. By choosing myself, I've become someone worth choosing. The 12 missed calls from that day represent all the times the universe was trying to tell me I mattered, even when the person who should have been calling didn't. They were proof that I was seen, that my absence was noticed, that people cared enough to check on me. Sometimes the love we need comes from unexpected sources, and sometimes the abandonment we fear becomes the liberation we need. So here's to the forgotten ones, the overlooked ones, the ones waiting at airports, both literal and metaphorical, for someone who isn't coming. Your ride is here. It's been here all along. It's you. You are your own rescue, your own celebration, your own happy ending. Choose yourself. The view from that choice is spectacular. Have you ever had a moment when you realized you needed to choose yourself? When did you stop waiting for someone else's validation and start validating yourself? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Like this video if it touched your heart, and subscribe for more stories about finding strength in unexpected moments. Remember, you are worth choosing, especially by yourself. Thank you for being here, for witnessing my story, and for having the courage to write your own. Until next time, keep choosing yourself. You deserve nothing less.